We got a live stream running. Um, and I'm Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee. And today is, I think, the third. Uh, it is Friday the 3rd, and I'm late today. It's about 8:48 in the morning, and it's 78 degrees already. Got the AC going before it heats up, and we're going to hit 90. So this is AC weather, drain the bank account weather. Okay, so today we got a pretty remarkable off the cuff, I would say, comment that Vance made, and I heard the video of it live. Now we're going to get into what he said, and I think he let the cat out of the bag about what's going on with the United States and Iran. I think this is maybe the explanation, and I'll reveal it to you in a moment. But it's a little detailed. It's not so simple, but and we're going to discuss other things like what Israel is doing in Lebanon, and we're working in very. Where's my water? We're working in very fast guidelines with Lebanon to get rid of the problem up there. Where did I put my water? I got to get my water, guys. I'll be right back. Um, I'll be right there. Well, the water too gets you treated hard. We don't do treats necessarily. Okay, back here. Sorry. I made a cup of coffee and I filled my water bottle up and left it in the kitchen. Uh, the reason that Netanyahu is going to work heavy duty in South Lebanon is not so much that he expects to have to pull out of South Lebanon. It's more that he thinks Iran is going to break out fighting. Iran's going to come out fighting, and we're going to cover why. And it has to do with the dead Khomeini. And he doesn't want Hezbollah bothering us when we got to focus on Iran. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff, and we're going to do some translations today from the older texts of the Hebrew New Testament. We're going to use Salkinson, who reverse translated the Greek to the Hebrew using the old Septuagint going back to 250 BC before Yeshua came to Israel. And he also was in Egypt. I know. And Delitzsch, New Testament in Greek, which is basically from the Greek to the Hebrew. And we're bringing the Hebrew back. We're going to take the Greek and get the Hebrew and then basically put it in secular English, not using any tools from churchianity like Brown Driver and Briggs and Strong's and all of them. And it's going to be using secular sources as old as can be obtained to get the translation, and it's done with AI with my strict criteria imposed upon it. Okay. Now, some of you are probably afraid of AI, and I'm sorry that's the case, but many people were afraid of the internet when that started being used for Bible back in the 90s. What are you going to, we've been using the internet for many years to spread the gospel. Okay, so I'm going to go into the live stream and see what's going on and why is this going on. Okay, let me get out of there. There we go. That was easy. And live stream's looking pretty good. Let me get a post up there very quickly. Got to turn this down a lot. All right. Thank you, moderator. And let me get my post cooking here, which is going to take seconds, not minutes. Okay, and let me put this up. Okay, it looks like everything's good. I'm going to do what very few people do. Do some praise to the Lord. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 And now I'll pray, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. I pray for a good live stream today, and it turns to a good video with a good anointing that helps me, helps the people, and correct any errors and make it all understandable. We know what the nations are up to. We know how we would learn how you're fulfilling prophecy, and we wouldn't get fooled by what the nations are up to. And you would give us some sort of a sense of timing on things and help us and mercy and grace on us, please. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, so what did our boy Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America, say? He said these words: the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, was really just kind of to get the world's oil supply built back up. I never thought that was a predominant reason, okay? But apparently it is. And that's probably why Congress is putting up with his lies, because he told them what his end game really is, and will reveal it. They were very close to disaster with the oil reserves running out, which would cause, look, let me explain what that would cause. It would cause a total upset of everything that Satan worked to build, because that schmuck has everything revolving around oil. Okay? So a small amount of his chosen slobs can make billions of dollars on oil. All right. And to some extent control the world to a point. Not much, but to to a considerable degree. So let's keep going. So what did I understand that we're very, very close. So by opening up the Straits of Hormuz, oil is moving. It's not moving in fantastic amounts. It's moving. Iran is trying to shovel out, that's not literal, as much oil as they can right now, as quick as they can. They need money. Okay. I believe the dollar buys 1.7 million Iranian rial. So it's is it even worth the paper it's printed on? Because it's so diminished in value, what they really need to do is start printing, notes that are a million, 10 million, 100 million, and a billion denomination. Otherwise, the cost of the paper it wouldn't be worth it. Okay, the currency is still dropping. All right. So the Iranians are shoveling oil out of the Persian Gulf now, but all the oil is going to China. That's where they're pushing all their oil. That's their friend. Okay. And they're giving China a sweetheart deal. The oil right now, this morning I looked, was about $69 and change, say $70 for the American WTI, and about 72 and change for the Brent, the European oil. But that's on the paper, the futures and stuff. Now, I don't know how much they're charging for immediate delivery. I expect it's probably very close to that, maybe $1 or $2 a barrel or $5, not much. Okay. So if he gets it down to 60, he's got it to where the world's had it for a long time. Okay. If he pushes it down to 60, and he has a good chance of getting it down to 60. But let me tell you, the world can tolerate $70 a barrel. No problem. Okay. Now, it will go lower. Uh, what Vance said next was a lie. He said, well, the reason the oil is mostly going to China is even though the sanctions were lifted, the other countries don't want to buy the oil because they're not sure of the status of the sanctions. Now, why is this a lie? If you buy the oil, order it, make the deal, you're going to do a bill of lading, which means when the oil shows up, the letter of credit's going to be fundable and Iran's going to get their money. Okay. But not until the oil shows up. And they probably want to inspect the goods, however you do that. Okay. So what is going on is Iran wants all their oil going to China, who is probably going to send them more radar because Trump blew up a lot of their radar near the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. They might have made a deal because China was sweating for oil, believe me. They might have made a deal to get aggressive weapons, offensive weapons from China. This is possible because China was under duress, stressful duress over oil. So they might have had to weaken their stance with Iran. This still puts more oil in circulation because now China isn't running around looking to buy oil from the other countries. So the other countries have more oil to sell to other people, other countries, And since they have a sufficient supply, we would think the prices aren't going to be crazy. I expect Iran's charging China probably $40 a barrel. The price of oil went up, but Iran doesn't have to spend extra money processing the oil. That's a fixed number. So they're doing China a favor, and China is going to definitely repay the favor. Are they sending oil to India? No, we're not picking that up. They're not so happy with India. China, Russia, North Korea hang tough with Iran. Okay? They like them. Okay? If they need oil, Iran will try to help them. Well, Russia's got their own. Russia's oil business is crippled from the Ukraine war, and Russia refines the oil into gasoline inside Russia. And I think the Ukrainians messed that up enough that there's a gas shortage and has been for a few months in Russia. Russia, before the war, was a large exporter of crude oil to the world, and they will certainly have enough crude oil to take care of themselves. Ukraine continues to hit refineries and oil storage tanks and stuff like that. So the other countries are throwing oil out from the Persian Gulf too, but nowhere near the amount of what Iran is. But they're getting the oil out. They're pushing oil. Okay. So, but remember, filling Iran up with oil, taking the pressure off of filling China up with oil, taking the pressure off of them, it helps the world because China doesn't have to run around to all these countries and buy the oil. So there's more for other people. So it does work. But it's not okay. What Iran's trying to do is help China, give them low priced oil and help them be more competitive in the market. And they're hoping to destroy the other countries economically. So it would help China with a marked advantage in selling things. They're all for China. They're very interested in helping China. The fact that China is anti Muslim and prohibits the celebration of Ramadan in China and severely monitors any Muslims in China. I don't believe they have any mosques, and the Iranians don't care why. I've told you 1,000 times. Not 1,000, many times. The heads of Iran say they're Muslim, but they're Satan bots. The heads of China say they're communists, but they're Satan bots. So they're doing this because it's Satan bot to Satan bot. Okay? That's why. Otherwise, it would make no sense. If that wasn't the case, that there weren't Satan bots at the head, Iran would be rejecting China for the uh, persecution of Muslims in China, which they're heavily persecuted, which Israel doesn't do that to the Muslims living in Israel. America doesn't do that to the Muslims in America. The EU doesn't do it. China does it. You know who else does it? Japan. Why do they do it? They're smart. That's why. So, how long is this going to take for the world to fill up on oil? Well, we're in July, right? Probably 6 to 8 weeks till we get all the reserves built up again. Now, that's built up again like they used to be, but now they may want to exceed it. And you got the midterm elections in America. They would be voting on or around November 4th, the first week in November. I think it's the Tuesday they vote. So Trump may want to let this slide until the midterm elections, and then I think he'll bounce right after that. Uh, like, what? Like, a day or two after, something like that. And that gives the world plenty of time to not only build their reserves up, but the smart ones will double their reserves. So they could maybe go 4 months, 6 months. And why does this make sense? Because the Iranians have missile cities that I do not know how they could be taken out unless you're doing ground forces, special forces doing it. Okay. So, um, Trump seems to be building up the Boxer uh, land amphibious landing ship, which probably travels with two additional vessels in a group of three that carries, usually 2,000 to 2,500 Marines, and they have vertical takeoff planes and helicopters, and they carry tanks and all kinds of things. With the three, uh, naval vessel fleet, the little group they have. It's a group. It's back. It went home to America. Now it's coming back to the Middle East again. And the two aircraft carriers are still here. So Trump is still there on guard. Now, I told you what Trump and Vance are up to. Now, to do this right, I have to tell you what Iran's up to, what it appears to be. Okay. Now, Trump is hedging and hawing. I heard that they got $12 billion of their money back, and I heard $19 billion. And now I'm hearing they never really got any of their money yet. Well, maybe Trump jammed it up before it got released to them. When to get a bank to let go of billions of dollars quickly, you have to have a gun to their head. Okay? To The bank is going to try to drag it out and keep that money on their books making interest. Okay? And when you start talking about billions of dollars, it's a lot of money. And the banks will sit there and drag that out and drag that out and drag that out. Oh, we got to check terrorism. We got to check money laundering. We got to check the humidity in the air. We got to talk to the seals at the seashore and see what they say. It's stupid. Banks are dumbbells, okay? Look, They harass you with your money in money payment services, with your banks all the time. It's standard operating procedure. And they're saying terrorism, money laundering. You people in America, like everybody else, doesn't have enough money to money launder. They should only be looking at people that have a bank balance of over $5 million. Harass them. No, they're the Satan bots, Satan's chosen people. They're not going to harass them. They're going to harass you. Do you think it makes any sense? Look, he's releasing money to the biggest terrorist in the world, Iran. They sponsor the Houthis. They sponsor Hamas. They sponsor Hezbollah. They sponsor numerous Iran-backed militias. They have the IRGC that shoots their own civilians dead in the street for protesting. He gives them money, but he scrutinizes you. Can you wake up and realize that the governments are no good? All of them, everyone in the world, all of them, they're all with Satan. If they weren't, they'd overthrow the government and make sure it was with Satan. They've been with Satan a long time. You got to get that down, or you don't understand what's going on in the world. It makes no logical sense to harass people that usually never have more than $3 or $5 or $20,000 in their bank. Okay, they almost never get over those balances. You need to look at people really with at least $5 or $10 million. How are you going to money launder? Let's say you do good, you make $160,000 a year. How are you going to money launder? Let's say you're a brain surgeon and you're really good and you make $3 million a year. How are you going to money launder? What amount are you going to money launder and to who? And you're going to leave a paper trail in your bank when you do it? What are we talking about here? You see, they're harassing you. They want to harass you when you get on an airplane with TSA or some other, in another country. They got others, you know? Is it real that they got to check the people for weapons and explosives so the Iranians don't blow planes up or their terror groups? Yeah, yeah, it is. So why does America coddle these people? Why is Hamas still alive? Netanyahu says, I got rid of 80 something percent of the tunnels in the yellow zone in Gaza, the yellow zone, right? Well, gee, Netanyahu, why don't you tell us you got rid of 83% of Hamas? They refused to disarm. Why don't you get rid of them? Gee, Netanyahu, are we so stupid we don't know that when you destroy the houses and the buildings, they rebuild them? And they get money from the other Arab countries and they rebuild them? And it's just a matter of time till they're coming at us again. But if you killed them, it would be the end of it. You understand? So Netanyahu's blowing up the houses and the infrastructure in South Lebanon now, burning them even. Why? The Hezbollah moved into South Lebanon years ago with their wives and their children. You know, they'll martyr their wives and children. They don't care. Moved down there and they started putting missiles, explosives, anti tank firing missiles, weapons, everything and anything in their houses with their wives and children. In South Lebanon, because they were able to take immature weapons and fire into Israel and get a hit. A Katusha the top dog in the Katusha line. There's all kinds of Katushas, okay? Just like you go to the store, you want chocolate, there's all kinds of chocolate, right? There's all kinds of Katusha. The best of the best will go about 18 miles. So they can't be up around Beirut and hit Israel with those cheapy rockets that they could build easy. You know, they're made out of such cheap metal that if you look at it, you might even see the Budweiser logo on it, made out of beer cans or something. And it has a stovepipe launcher. It's easy to make these things, and guys can carry them around. But they need to be close to Israel to use those. The more sophisticated missiles that can reach Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are more sophisticated, but they're not like the missiles Iran shoots from Iran to get here. They don't go that great of a distance, but they're like a medium range missile. And they use drones. Soldiers are complaining they're being chased by drones, Lebanese, well, Hezbollah drones, and chasing the soldiers, and it's scary. They've killed soldiers with these things, so we had to take protective measures. But Netanyahu refuses to go around killing Hezbollah. I don't know why, other than he wants them to be able to rise up again another day. That's his orders from the dark side. Okay, that's the only thing I get out of it. Um, so he's not only destroying the houses now in South Lebanon, he's destroying the infrastructure. So he's still not destroying the individuals, but when you get rid of the infrastructure and the houses, it's going to take a few years for a rebuild, if ever. There may never be a rebuild. So this, he's saying, well, we're not going to leave Lebanon as long as, we need to be there. Well, maybe if he gets rid of all you see, if he gets rid of all the houses and all the infrastructure and pulls the troops back to Israel, he's stabbing Israel in the back. Netanyahu would be stabbing Israel in the back because Hezbollah doesn't care about the houses. They'll go down there and dig tunnels or something like that, go crawl in tree trunks or whatever they're going to do, and operate without houses. Very bad. So Netanyahu is not any good for Israel. Okay, sadly, the people buy into him. It's quite sad. Uh, they don't understand what's going on with that girl. Yeah, I know what I said. Uh, he's a real piece of trash. I used another word this time. So, Israel can't get rid of this jerk. I mean, there's millions of people that want to get rid of this idiot. He keeps bouncing back. We had a candidate, relatively speaking, not a believer, Moshe Feiglin in the Knesset. He was actually pretty good for Israel. He was pro-Israel for real. Netanyahu chewed him up and spit him out and got him out of the Knesset. Feiglin was probably not an S-bot and wasn't doing counter spiritual warfare. He's not a believer, so Netanyahu got him. God's not going to put believers in the Knesset because it just wouldn't be a fit. How can two walk together unless they're agreed? And you wouldn't be agreed with the Knesset. So how could you be, walking there with them? You couldn't. It couldn't work. All right. Is it going to give Israel some sense of security for some period of time with the houses burned, blown up, and the infrastructure in these little cities and villages in South Lebanon gone? Yes, for sure, 100%. But there's no permanence to it. The Lebanese army is now shifting their manpower because they're kind of admitting that the Shiite Muslims in their army will not fight against Hezbollah that are also Shiite Muslims. So you must stop right here and realize the problem. 60% of the Lebanese army is Shiite. 60%, so 40% of the Lebanese army is not Shiite, and they potentially could fight against Hezbollah. Great. How many of that 40% are in quartermasters, in food, in construction, driving trucks, mechanics, computer operators, healthcare? You get the idea? Lebanon cannot wage a war against Hezbollah and win. And the Israeli government knows that, and I'm sure Trump's been told. Hezbollah will wipe them out. Why is Hezbollah not wiping them out? Because Israel will intervene. If Hezbollah took over Lebanon, they would invite the Iranians to come over there, set up military bases, airports, manufacturing facilities for drones and missiles and weapons. Um, I don't know what else, anything and everything. Um, Israel knows that. It might happen, though. I don't know. It could happen. I'm not so sure it will, but it could. It might be more like Hezbollah breaks up the Lebanese army and kills thousands of them. And then they start taking over Lebanon by force, and then Israel intervenes before Iran could dig their teeth into it. Okay? That's more like what would happen. So Trump wants to see Lebanon not under the control of Iran because it's just more headaches. So Trump is just going to be putting up with anything and everything Iran does for a period of time. I would say at least 6 or 8 weeks. So if Iran sank an American destroyer and killed 300 sailors, Trump would probably do a limited strike, hit a target or something, and that's it. Wouldn't go to war. The Iranians got their own agenda. They're not that worried about Trump's agenda. They got their own agenda. As they said, they want to cause economic destruction to America. Iran's not trying to build up their oil reserves. It's trying to build up, they got plenty. It's trying to build up their bank account. So they're going to keep selling oil. And they know that if they attempt to close the Persian Gulf again, Trump will stop them from moving their oil, cut the ships off on the way into the Persian Gulf. So what we got left to look forward to is more of the same from Trump for weeks and weeks. Okay, unless Iran changes their approach. And since Iran's in a very big hurry to sell as much oil as they can, as fast as they can, they have another plan. And it is not consistent with Trump's plan. I don't know what their deadline is. I mean, how much do they want to pick up another 5 billion in funds, another 10 billion? Probably someplace in there. And then what are they going to do? They're going to tell Trump to leave the Persian Gulf. We're in control. And they'll start charging tolls. Now, if they can get away with that without doing anything with their nuclear program or their ballistic missiles or anything of the sort, they'll do that. Trump's not going to let them charge tolls. What happens is this, it's pretty easy to understand. They charge tolls, Trump's destroyers and aircraft shut down the Persian Gulf, turn the ships away. Iran doesn't get to sell any more oil. Hmm. So the bottom line here is Iran is conning America and America is conning Iran, and they both know it. But Trump is planning ground activity. If he bought that amphibious landing ship, the Boxer, back, that means he's going to land. People don't understand that what Trump is not going to do is do a real ground invasion and occupation. He would need hundreds and hundreds of thousands of soldiers, which he doesn't have. Now, admittedly, Trump wants to get the oil to forward the Trump dynasty, but Iran has about 1 million people in uniform. And, the official numbers for this from the war colleges around the world from different countries is 3-1. That would mean Trump needs 3 million. Now, I said invade and occupy. But the only way he's going to really get the oil is to invade and occupy. I myself am rather certain the Iranians, if they saw they were losing, would blow their own oil wells up and refineries to a point where it would take a year or 2 years to rebuild them. Probably not more than a year. It could maybe be more significant if they completely demolished the pipelines and the refineries and the storage tanks and the oil wells are on fire. It could take years. The Iranians know what Trump's waiting to do. They're pretty aware of it. They want to see war going on in the days just leading up to the midterms. So that would mean sometime in August. That's a little early. September, or later August, September, the fighting would be remembered in November because it's not really in November, it's November 4th or 5th or something. So it's very early in November. Can the Iranians wait this long? Well, they have to wait a while to get the money. I don't know how much money they want. The more money Trump gives them, the quicker they're going to start the war up again. Now, you got to add this into it. Trump killed Khomeini. He admitted it. We all know that. America did. The Iranians are talking about revenge for killing Khomeini now. And they're saying anyone who kills the next Khomeini gets it also from Iran. What's going on now is they had the dead Khomeini, the father of the latest Khomeini, in some sort of a temporary grave for a period of time. And now they're moving old man Khomeini's body to a more permanent entombment, another tomb, a permanent one. Probably make a monument for him and depict him as the greatest, God's leader and all this psycho stuff, right? But they're getting in revenge mode now. And we heard some dialogue from a member of the Iranian parliament that's in charge of revenge. So they actually have official postings about revenge. They do. What these malaligned doomkoffs are going to want to do is after they're involved in some mourning, Mourning, not AM, the morning about this now. Of course, this is, I don't know how many days it is when they put him in the new tomb, which they're doing or they did. And this is going to be over. And when that's over, then comes revenge. Now, let's see if we can get a time estimate as to how long that lunacy with them, with the new tomb, is going to last. I think we could get some figures to that. Let's try. Um, the Iranians have moved the dead Khomeini, the deceased Khomeani, into a new tomb, a more permanent tomb. And I understand that they're mourning him as well as a result of his changing tombs. Can you find out how long the mourning period is for this dead guy that they're changing the tombs for? See if we get a figure. I am talking about the dead supreme leader of Iran that was killed several months ago by the Americans. Have the Iranians already started the mourning period for the dead supreme leader's reburial in his new tomb? Okay, here's where we're at. I got it clear. The new re-entombment of this guy, this is pretty weird. The dead Khomeini, uh, there's a period now of 7 days, 6 or 7 days of mourning for this dead supreme leader Khomeini, and they're starting it on Saturday, July 4th, the 4th of July. Are they planning some sort of attack on America for the 4th of July? Usually they do their revenge after the mourning period. They start the mourning on the 4th, and the actual reburial takes place on Thursday, July 9. So as of now, today, July 3, Iran's prepping for it, but the public reburial mourning ceremonies are going to start tomorrow. I am strongly of the belief that for that 7 days, which would be the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, on the 11th, they might be moving into revenge mode. So they're shoving as much oil as they can out the door to just China to beef China up. And they might only be doing this another week or so. And then they're going to go on the warpath. Or they might wait till the end of July. I don't know. They want economic damage to America. So what does it mean when it goes on the warpath? Will they attack the American bases in the Middle East countries? Yes. What is going to be more meaningful? They're going to attack the oil refineries, the oil storage tanks, the oil pipelines, the LNG facilities, and the oil wells in Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE. Probably leave Oman alone. Probably not worry about Jordan too much, since Jordan only uses oil for its own self. And Saudi Arabia, definitely. What they might also do, and they threatened it, is hit the water desalination plants in these countries, which take water from the sea, salt water, run it through not a desalination thing the size of an SUV. They run it through a factory that, maybe sits on, 5 acres, a big thing that's, got an oil pipeline 3 feet that's pushing water rather, a water pipeline of a meter or something, shoveling water out like crazy. Or it could be a 6 foot water main. They got to hit something like that. These are not portable units. These are big facilities. Now, America and Israel threatened to hit, well, mostly America threatened to hit those in Iran, and they're threatening to hit the oil producing countries' water desalination. Now, we need to talk about this. I know that the Iranians threatened it because I remember reading it. They definitely threatened to do it. If the Iranians hit in these oil producing countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, probably Oman, and Saudi Arabia, they could even hit Iraq too. Who the heck knows? And they might hit Jordan. Who the heck knows? What they do, Jordan gets water from Israel, so they're not going to hit Jordan that badly. All right. But what happens is they hit the generators, the power stations in these countries with missiles and drones. They can even row their boats ashore like Michael. Michael, row your boat ashore. They could come across in boats if they wanted to, but I think they're afraid to because America has things called A-10 Warthogs that would go, and that's the end of the boat. Well, it actually would be that fast. Then it'd be like 25 rounds or something, and the boat doesn't exist anymore. It's just, floats, garbage floating in the water. Uh, but they could launch. And remember that the distance across the Persian Gulf is easy for like a medium range, non hypersonic, non ballistic missile. Just simple missiles can come across, and drones easy. So they have to swarm attack to defeat the Patriots, but the defense systems that they have, but they can do it. Now, you get rid of the grid, you get rid of the water desalinators in these countries, and you also hit the oil wells and the refineries. You didn't shut these countries down for 180 days. You shut them down like goodbye, leave. This is the prophecy in Jeremiah 49, starting at verse 34, regarding Elam. Now, Elam, I keep saying this, includes west Iran, but if you can't go in and just dissect southwest Iran and leave the rest of Iran in one piece, I don't think so, because it says Elam. I believe it's would be all of Iran. Things are so bad there, they have to leave their country. They get scattered into all the nations of the world, and the sword follows them. So they did something bad. Why would the sword follow the Iranians now? Let's talk. They'd go to Great Britain, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, and blah, blah, blah. What would happen? Oh, we'll throw people, our own people on welfare out in the street to die in the cold and give you their houses. I'm exaggerating, but And yeah, you come live in our country and let's see, we'll give you food, medical, housing, send your kids to school. We'll build mosques for you if we have to. And yeah, you can go run around the streets, stabbing our population. We're not very worried about that. If it makes you feel better, go kill a few of our people. We don't, I'm exaggerating, but why is it going to be that they're going to scatter into every nation of the world and the sword's going to follow them and they're going to get killed? That's what it says. It says, the Lord says, He will break the bow of Elam, the strength of their might. The bow of Elam is the missile launcher. An arrow is called a missile in its common language usage. It's a missile. So the bow, is the missile launcher that throws the missile at the target. That is what the Lord said He's going to destroy. So what do I think? Somebody's got a way to destroy these missile cities ultimately. And I think the name of that somebody is probably Israel. Could be America, though. Could be America. So let's say that Iran goes out and attacks devastatingly, which they can. Remember, for many weeks now, they've been rebuilding their missiles. They've got more missiles, and they've been repairing their missile cities and their missile launchers. They got more launchers, more missiles, more fortification. They're harder to take out. Okay? They're building missiles day and night. Don't kid yourself. Day and night, day and night. Does Trump care? If they had missiles that could reach America, he would care. They don't. So why is he worried? He's not. Does he care they're going to hit the NATO countries? Think it'll teach NATO a lesson, he might be thinking. I don't know. He probably cares. All right. So Iran does it because it's going to cause economic damage to America. They're thinking America is going to take the blame for all of this nonsense. and they're going to pin the tail on the donkey with Israel and America. Is that going to work? No, it's not going to work. He's not going to pin the tail on Israel and get away with it. These are the days of recompense. Can Iran get away with America? Yes. These are the days of the daughter of Babylon going down. Yes. Does God say, uh, I am for you to the daughter of Babylon? No. Do the angels rejoice when the daughter of Babylon is finished? Yes. It's going to turn on Trump somehow, some way, some shape or form. But if they destroy, the Iranians destroy the oil in the region, it's going to cause a tremendous problem in the world. Okay? You got about 21/4 of the oil. If they do what I said they do and start attacking the oil in America from ships with drones and missiles, they could shut down a good bunch of the American oil, and they could also they could do it in Venezuela, shut down Venezuela oil, or easy steezy, get the oil in Canada and shut that down. Canada's not a high security country. They're high security looking for people that they have no business looking for, regular poor people. They're not looking for the right people. If they were, they'd be bombing Iran, the backer of terrorism. They want to harass the working guy, the guy that never fired an AK-47, the guy that never picked up a Katyusha rocket, the guy that never stepped into a mosque, never chanted death to America, death to the infidels, none of these people. They get all the wrong people and harass them because they're Satan bot led countries. And Satan wants to make it hard on everybody, not the terrorists. You don't see Canada doing anything about the terrorists, do you? You see them pick up the phone. Hey, Donald, this is us here in Canada. We really need to get involved with this Iranian deal because we understand the threat and, we want to come over there and help you. And Trump says, yeah, okay, come on, I'll help you. We'll work together. How about that? They're not doing any of that. So if they destroyed a lot of the oil in the world, well, everybody's going to hate them. I can't think of anything else that's going to make everybody hate them where they're going to get killed in every nation of the world. You got to understand, every country in the world is after them. Muslims are after them. Okay? What would it take for the Muslims to want to kill them? Remember, they're not Arabs, they're Persians. So there's not that much strong blood there, but they are Muslim. Destroying the oil supply and making life very, very uncomfortable for the Muslim majority states would cause them to want to do it. So they get rid of the Iran. That's probably the only thing I can think of that would make the nations turn against these psychopathic Iranians. You and I don't know the timing on this. We don't know how long it'll take. We don't know much of anything. That's why we wait and watch. Okay, let me go into my notes and see what I else I need to tell you. A lot of the news commentators are saying after the midterms, which would be November 4th, as far as I know, he would go after them. The other thing they're saying is the weather in Iran right now is very hot, and it would be harsh on the ground troops. But the Iranian ground troops manage, and the American special forces have been in Afghanistan and Iraq and other sandboxes, and they can handle it. The people on the naval vessels, it doesn't affect them. They're all air conditioned. The people in the aircraft are not affected. You know, it I don't buy that too much. The winter brings wet season, which makes mud, and that makes life a little more difficult. But if Trump's going to let this run out to November, the Iranians are going to have a massive amount of missiles. Now, they might go after the United States of America too, because the world might blame America and Iran for wrecking their oil. The American government is dangling rewards to Iran for opening the Straits of Hormuz. So it's like open, but it's not really open. They're still trying to control it, you know. But I don't know. It's hard for us to get good statistics on that. Uh, the Americans are offering a cash release of their frozen assets, uh, but the Iranians insist on charging tolls to pass through the waterway. So it's not like the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal, where they actually spent a lot of time and money and laboriously built it and maintain it. Iran doesn't do anything to build the Persian Gulf or maintain it. It's just extortion with a gun. They're trying to do Al Capone protection racket. That's all. Pay money to pass through the canal. Protection from who? Protection from the people you're paying the money to. And Trump lies and says that Trump is claiming that Iran has agreed to most of the U.S. demands, and Trump's also questioning why the Jews in America support Democrats, because a lot of the Jews in America are very liberal and they're nuts, and that's why they do that. Trump denied that Iran will turn into a forever war. I believe he's right. Turkey is saying that Israel is too much for humanity to bear. Don't pay attention to that. Turkey talks out of both sides of their mouth. They openly uh, say bad things about Israel, but then they still do trade with Israel. Just you know, so we don't know. Let's see. Trump is saying now he's not going to enforce the August 18th deadline, the 60-day deadline. So he's basically saying there is no deadline. Eh. Since mid-June, the Iranians shipped between 40 and 50 million barrels of oil. So you figure they're getting from China probably $40 a barrel. But maybe they might have got more. We don't know because oil was high at 80, 100. So some of it might have been gone at 50, 60, 70 a barrel. I don't know. Just because Trump wants to wait for the midterms, it doesn't mean that Iran will. Iran wants the American forces out of the Persian Gulf. He wants all the military bases that America has closed. They want the American warships out of there, and they're not going to get that. And what Trump is saying, let's give them their billions of dollars. What do we care? Right? Uh, and then just wait till the oil reserves get high enough. Maybe he's looking for 6 months of reserves, not 90 days. And then he goes in and plays wipeout on Iran. But he's not going to start out with wipeout. He's going to start out with taking the country over, or taking their oil over, anything like that. It's impossible for him to take Karg Island out because Karg Island is where they load 90% of the oil gets loaded onto ships on Karg Island. The Iranians, the Lebanese are saying we're blowing up infrastructure and buildings in various villages in the south. And I covered that. And this has been going on for weeks. It's nothing new. You're picking it up in the news now. And Trump is not belly aching about that. He's trying to keep Iran at bay. He's not that worried if Iran launches missiles at Israel because Israel will retaliate and then he'll tell Israel to cut it out. Let Israel do enough to Iran so Iran thinks twice before they do it again, and then continue the same way he's been going. the funeral days is, of course, an opportunity for Netanyahu to bomb the daylights out of, well, to blow up houses and infrastructure in South Lebanon. We accelerate things, make things, go faster because they're in mourning. So we got, till the at least the 11th. So Netanyahu's going to try to destroy a lot of stuff down there. Which means he's probably trying to come up with some sort of a methodology of getting the Hezbollah deactivated, or at least shoving them all the way up into Lebanon. Let me get a mileage number here for you. I got an idea here. Um, Distance in miles from Beirut, Lebanon to the border with Israel. 55 to 60 miles. So if you go in, say it's going to take them 60 miles or so to hit the people that live in Kiryat Shmona and Metula near the border with Lebanon. That's a different type of missile altogether. That's not a Katusha. Katushas are easy to make. They're nothing with nothing. So they need to use a medium range missile, a more sophisticated missile, one that's much harder to build. And the launches are not, a Katusha, you take beer can metal, literally junk metal. You have a piece like this, you have a piece like this, and then you have a pipe, maybe half, you know, half curved pipe, and the rocket rests on that, and you could lower this to change the angles. And they launch it off of that. And it weighs maybe 20, 30 pounds, the launcher, or less even. And the Katusha doesn't weigh that much. So one guy carries the Katusha and the other guy carries the launcher, or maybe the launcher in two pieces. Two guys carry, usually a 3-man crew. They have delayed action. They have a way to set the launcher up with the missile with a timer, so they could set it for 10, 15 minutes, and they set it up, aim it, although you don't really aim Katyushas. They just they just go where they go. It's a terrorist weapon. They just point it at the angle they think is going to work for what they want to accomplish, and then they run away. And it goes off in 10 or 15 minutes, whatever the timer said. Um, so by the time fighter jets get there, even if they're already in position over the skies of Lebanon, they're not going to get there fast enough. So that's what Netanyahu's doing. Also, when they're launching from 50, 60 miles away, we have more time to take the thing down. Okay? And they're not doing hypersonics at that range or something like that. They're using, slower moving missiles. So he's not going up there in Beirut and burning stuff and destroying stuff. He's just getting it in the south. He said that 82, or I think it was 82% of Hezbollah's missiles have been destroyed or gone or something like that. So, they could still fire at us. But see, down in the south, what they were doing is they were taking a lot of the anti tank missiles. These are shoulder fired things like a bazooka, but it's not a bazooka. A bazooka was different, more immature, more like an artillery piece. This is like a rocket launcher, shoulder fired, and it's for anti tank, and it has a short range. I don't know, maybe 2 miles or something. So they would go right by the border, and they would shoot them at the houses of the Israelis living near the border. Maybe they go 5 miles. I don't know. They have a very, very short range. And they're not very potent, but you certainly don't want one hitting your house. It's going to cause a lot of damage. And if it hits the room in the house you're in, you're probably going to get hurt. And if it hits your car, it's going to cause damage and probably very significant injuries to those that are in the car it hit. So the foreign minister of Turkey, not Erdogan, said in an interview with CNN, Turkish CNN, said the people of Israel have become a burden that humanity can no longer bear. Well, he's got a problem with God here, and God always wins. They're telling us that we might get an El Nino uh, in the winter with flooding, snow, and storms and stuff like that. New meteorological service reports say a powerful El Nino is expected to fall in 2026. Could raise the chance. It could raise maybe chances of heavy rain, flash flooding, hail, strong winds, and significant snow, though forecasters stress these are scenarios, not certainties. Okay. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but it can affect our lovely neighbors who hate us. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the weather people here on any forecast that goes out more than 48 hours. You start talking months, forget about it. I'm not going to get concerned about that, but it might happen. I don't know. I wouldn't plan on it. Let me look at the live stream and see what's going on. If I got anything I need to deal with. Someone says stand and pray, correct. Uh, do you think Jews will be able to build the third temple soon? We don't build the third temple. If you read um, Ezekiel 37, the last three verses, God sends this temple to us. And I know it's not New Jerusalem. Also, if you read Ezekiel 43 about the next temple where the glory of God of Israel appears and goes there to stay in there, you realize that we're not given any of the building instructions for it. We don't build it. You also should read Malachi 3, and you'll see Elijah, the Tishbite, Elijah, not the spirit of Elijah kind of thing, training the Levites to do the offerings to make them acceptable to the Lord. So it appears that that could be the temples there. And then it also says in Malachi 3 that the glory of God of Israel will come suddenly to his temple. So it appears the temple is there for a while, but without the glory of God inside it. So also, it's not the third temple per se. I know they call it that, but you had Solomon's, Zerubbabel, and Herod's temple. That's three. Okay. They say Herod's temple was a rebuild of Zerubbabel's. Ridiculous theory. Zerubbabel's temple was very small. Herod's was substantially larger. So you had three, and the next one's number four. Do I think the USA is a free and independent country? Well, I think freedom was gone by 1965 or something. Around then, freedom bit the dust in America. I don't know anything about Trump's gas prices. You could get American, gas prices. I could find the average price of gasoline real quick. Let me get it for you. What is today's average price of gasoline in the United States of America, taking into account prices for diesel and the regular gas and the high octane gas? Regular is 384. Mid grade, that's not super high test, but it's better, is 89 octane. 87 is regular, 89 is the mid range, that's 432. Premium, which is 91 to 93 octane, is 469. And diesel is 582. They raised the price of diesels, these jackasses, on purpose to get you to stop buying diesel cars because diesel runs much better. Back around 1980, I bought a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel, small car, had a stick shift. It got 56 miles to the gallon. Back in 1980, do you think they couldn't improve mileage between 1980 and today to at least get it to 65 or 66, another 10 miles per gallon? Of course. But they did they? No. After the car was about 2 years old, it was getting down to about 47 a gallon, miles a gallon. Didn't go that far. I'd put in 10 gallons and I'd use the car a lot, and I'd get 6 weeks out of the car. So to 2 months. I mean, I hardly ever got gas. And diesel was about $1 a gallon. Now I remember when you had a gas crisis around 79. Before then, diesel was in the 60s, I think 60, 70 cents. Then they raised it to $1 to get it on par with the regular gasoline. They're just being, cheating us. It's cheaper to have diesel, but that's what it is. So people on average aren't paying $5. They're paying way over four. But people can handle that. People can't handle $8. I think $8 people are going to really freak out. And you're far from $8 in America. Europe is paying $8, $9. We're paying $8, $9 a gallon here. Netanyahu taxes our gas at $3 a gallon. So if things got bad, what Netanyahu would do was suspend the tax. So $9 a gallon, suspending the tax would be $6. Europe has a similar thing, so they could make it more palatable if they have to. But you see, they're worried about, you know, gas going to $12 a gallon or something like that. And that would mean you just need to get to about $200 to $300 a barrel of crude oil. That's all you need. And we were up at $115 a barrel not long ago from the Iranian fighting. And when you took into account paying extra for spot delivery, you were in almost $150 a barrel in some countries. Okay, so to see 200, 250, so if you had, even $10 a barrel, I mean $10 a gallon, so someone goes and they put 18 gallons in their tank, it's $180. Oh, people in America, and they go through a tank a week, which is lightweight. Some people go through 2 tanks a week. That guy's paying about $800 a month for gasoline. Where do they got the budget for that? Everything. But then what about the airline industry? Oh man, you take a flight that costs round trip $500, it'll be $800, $900. People aren't going to want to fly. They'll be grounding the planes. Taxis and Ubers are going to have to go up. In New York, when you want to get a license to have a taxi cab, you have to buy a permit. And the permit comes with a thing shaped like a bad shield, and you rivet it onto the hood of the car. It's metal, like aluminum. And you rivet it on so the police can see, you have a a medallion, they call it. Okay. And these medallions used to be like over $100,000. And people were buying them, and then the Ubers would come along. That came in, and it killed business for them. The regular taxis are, you know. So, in other words, you could go out in the street in Manhattan and wave at a taxi and just hail them and get in, but you can't wave at an Uber. You have to call the Uber. So the Uber's a private car service. Okay. We always had in New York private car services that were not allowed to cruise for clients. I worked for one once. I drove for them. I drove also a licensed cab too in Manhattan. That was a trip. But I worked for the private car service. People call, and then you go pick them up and take them to a location, and they pay you. So people don't want to sit out there and wait to see a cab come by. And if you're in some high residential areas, yeah, high residential areas, you didn't go out in the street and wave a cab down. There weren't cabs. In Manhattan, there were cabs. Uh, So people bought these medallions back in the 50s and 60s that were $40,000 and stuff. So my mother knew a guy. I never really knew these people. He bought a medallion and he drove the car one shift, and he had a partner that went in with him and he drove it another shift, and they rotated. So they stayed out as much as they could. I don't know if they drove for 12 hours, maybe they drove for 8 or 10, whatever. They drove as much as they could, and they just kept the money. They didn't have to give the money to another company. It just went in their pocket. And when someone gets in the cab, it has a meter. It's a little flag, metal flag. And when they get in, you push the flag down and it starts the meter running. And then when you get to the destination, you put it up and it stops. And the people can see what the fare is, and then they pay you. In those days, there was no counter that was digital that would, show you what it was. I imagine there were people that could open it up and roll the numbers around. If it even recorded, I don't even know if it kept a record at the end of the year how much you did. I don't think so. So they were pocketing money. What was the percentage of people that paid them in cash in those days? 100%. Everybody paid them in cash. Okay. So they were pocketing a lot of money. All right. Without telling the government. That's why they were liking the business. And I heard you'd make a lot of money. I don't know. I mean, you have to know. I drove a yellow cab, a licensed cab for a company, and they take 60% of it. They give you 40%, and it's their cab. And the cabs are pieces of junk, but they work. They got to give you brakes. They got to give you everything. So I got hit by a bus right on Times Square at about 3 miles an hour. The bus driver turned and he scraped the right front fender of the cab. I was stopped. I couldn't move. The bus driver says, let's exchange information. I said, yeah. He said, are you all right? Are you all right? I said, yeah, yeah. And then he was a pretty nice guy. And then I went and called the cab company. I said, I got hit by a bus. They said, are you all right? I said, yeah. And they said, is the cab drivable? I said, yeah. So I said, it just entered the fender, was very low speed. He says, okay, just keep driving, finish your shift, and then come back. So I don't know, that was the last day I drove the cab. I took the cab down to Central Park. They had a concert there. The Chambers Brothers were playing, if you remember them. Their big hit was a song called Time. Time is on my side. So I didn't have a ticket to go inside, but the stadium where they played was all open. It had some kind of fence or wall, but it was all open. So you just would sit on the grass outside the area, maybe 2, 3, 400 feet away, depending how close you wanted to get. And you'd hear it because they had huge, voice in the theater speakers and all that. You just stay outside and you'd hear it. And so I parked the cab someplace because the cops didn't care where you parked your cab. They didn't bother you. So I parked the cab somewhere and in Manhattan. You could park a cab easily back then. And then I just watched the concert, listened to it. And then went home, and that was the last day of work for the cab. I gave that up. I had a bad time once. I was driving in the snow, I believe, or it was raining. Maybe it was raining. And I had people wanted me to go in a hurry, and they had I think it was Park Avenue I was on. I think it was snowing. I don't know. And it was divided. I don't know why I was driving in the snow. That I don't quite understand why. But anyway, Because I drove in the summer, but maybe it was rain. I don't know. And I went and I wanted to go the other way, and it had a break in the median divider, and I just turned around really fast. I didn't look too carefully, and I almost got hit. And you know, uh, but I didn't. I don't remember if it was raining or snowing. I don't remember driving a cab in the sun. I don't know. I had some people get in the cab. There was two women who got in a cab. I don't know. They related to this guy who looked like he was about 30 something years old or 25. I don't know. And they told me that he has to make a plane at the airport. He's getting married, and they're going to take care of me, and they want me to go fast to the airport. Never had anybody do that with me, right? So, okay. So I started going fast, and the women were talking to each other, and they said, "He's doing a good job. Just don't look straight ahead." And I got him out there quick, and they gave me a nice tip. Uh, the cops would get after you if they saw you on the parkways, kind of the highways in Manhattan, and you started speeding and cutting people off. You had to watch out for them. They wouldn't think that was funny. Uh, Parking violations, they didn't care. You had a cab park, they didn't bother you at all because they knew you were just temporarily parking. You wouldn't. You were getting a sandwich, you were getting coffee, you went to the toilet, or you were making a phone call. They knew you didn't park for the night. They left. They didn't care what you did with the parking. If you started running red lights, they got really upset about that. If you ran an amber light, maybe they didn't care, but they didn't like running lights, and they didn't care how fast you went in the traffic. Like you're going on Fifth Avenue, the light turns green, and you hit the gas, and you go as fast as you're gonna be able to go till you hit the next light. You're gonna maybe hit 40, instead of 25. They didn't care. They wouldn't bother you. If you started with this stuff, swerving in front of people, that they didn't like. And back then, a lot of the cops were patrolling Manhattan in taxi cabs. They, I don't know what they had cabs. I don't know. The city must have confiscated the cabs from somebody. They had medallions on them, and they were cabs. So they must have confiscated them from some cab driver that was involved in or cab company doing something illegal. I don't know. And usually one cop would patrol in the cab, uh, an undercover cop, and it worked pretty good. They were able to get close to crooks and wouldn't attract attention. You look at the traffic in Manhattan back then, and 70, 80% of the cars were yellow cabs. Cabs were supposed to be painted yellow, and they were yellow. Uh, so the Ubers killed it. So these people that spent by then they were spending a good $100,000 or more on the medallion to get the cab. That gives you one cab. It gives you one taxi. And they got stuck when the Ubers came out. Oh, the business went whoop. Anybody could be a cab. You just start with the Ubers. With the internet and the cell phones, everybody had access. In the days before, everybody, you know, not everybody had a cell phone with internet access, and you couldn't get to the Ubers as easily as you can today, you know. So that was it. So we're watching and waiting for Iran to blow up. It's a good question of when is Iran going to lose their temper. They know that America's putting up with this to build up the oil reserves, and then their plan is to wipe out Iran or take it over. Trump really wants to get the gas, the oil, but he won't. My take is Iran's going to light things up way before the midterms. And I don't know. I would think Iran maybe wants another few weeks of selling oil and then they're going to light everything up. Now, is there a chance that Trump is building an arsenal of these mother of all bombs, 30,000 pounders or whatever they got, right? And he's going to have one or 200 of those, and they're going to go drop them on the missile cities in succession, like three on each one. If you drop one, and then 4 or 5 minutes later you drop another, and then 4 or 5 minutes later you drop a third one, you're probably going to damage it so bad it ain't going to work, and you might kill everybody in there. I don't know. But before, they had at least 40 to 50 of these missile city sites. So if you figure they got 50 and you need three per, you need 150 bombs. That's 100. It's probably a good $150 million, or maybe 250 million, whatever these things cost. I don't know. Or he's just going to use the special forces to go boots on the ground and plant small amounts of explosives, like 25, 50 pounds, right on the door that opens and closes to fire the missile. If you put a 50-pound charge right at the door, on the door when it's close in the ground, and you ignited it, I would say there's a 90% chance at least that that door ain't going to work anymore, if not 100%. Now, that's assuming they're not making these doors out of 5 foot thick steel. I don't think they're doing anything of the sort. Even then, you might knock it off the track and it won't work. But they're probably using, 4 to 6 inch thick steel, maybe a foot. I don't know. The thicker you make the steel, the harder it is to open up the door to shoot the missiles out. So there's a limit as to what they could do. It might just be 4 or 6 inches of steel. Uh, but if it's that, then if you drop a regular 500 pounder on it, it might survive. If you took a 2,000 pounder and dropped it, it wouldn't survive. The door wouldn't work. See, the door has to be on a track. Now, if this is the door here, well, let's use this. This is the door here, and you want to launch the missile, you pick it up like that. Well, then it's not knocking it off a track. There's some sort of a bar that it sits on, and then you have a chain that just pulls it up from a motor. I don't know exactly how they do it. It might be that the door slides in and then it's open and then it slides out. It might be that it opens to the side one way or the other. I don't know. But Israel was able to disable some of the doors, I think, for entry and egress more. So I don't know what Trump's up to with that. That's what the big mystery looks like. And I think Trump probably explained this to the key members of Congress. who explained it to others, and that's what they came up with. I'm going to take a break for a minute, real quick, come right back, and we'll do the Bible. Bye, sweetheart. All right, let me take a quick look at the live stream, see if there's questions. It's trying to shovel out the punch oil that's they can right now. It's putting it in that. They keep on. Okay. I believe the dollar by 1.7 Iranian real. So it's is it even worth the paper it's printed on? Because it's so diminished its value. What they do. Why are all the prices going up? That's a good question. Our finance minister in Israel told us that the supermarkets during the war raised the prices tremendously and there was no reason for it. In other words, the cost of goods sold didn't go up. And Netanyahu didn't let them do anything about it because he probably got gifted by the supermarkets. So we got a lousy leader here. I'm guessing that's what happened. I don't know for a fact. That's just my guess. I could be wrong. But I don't trust Netanyahu. I trust him as far as I could throw the Eiffel Tower. Okay. Let's. Where did this go? We're going to do Galatians 1 and 2 from the Salkinson Hebrew New Testament and the Delich. The Salkinson is cleaner. It's not church influenced, and the Delich is more church influenced, but it can be good too. Okay, and this is translated not according to church doctrine and tradition by using the secular interpretations of the words. So you get a cleaner translation instead of the church sticking to the party line. Okay, Paul, an envoy sent not by men nor through human. And Delit says, Paul, an envoy appointed not by human agency nor by man, but by Yeshua, the anointed leader, and God the Father, who revived him, brought him to life from the dead. Interesting. Okay. Not by men nor through human authority, but by Yeshua, the designated king. Yeah, it's the anointed, the Messiah, and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. Verse 2. And all the brothers who are, this is all concerned, all the brothers who are with me to the assemblies of Galatia. And the Delitzsch uses the word to the convocations of Galatia. This is the ecclesia word, the called out from a monk. We use the word kehilah in Hebrew for that now. An assembly, it's not the church. The word church is not a real word in the Bible. They twisted it to make it appear, like a building organization thing. It's called out from among, meeting together would be the way I would define it. Okay, verse 3. Favor and peace to you from God our Father and our Master Yeshua, the designated King. And Yeshua, the anointed leader, is how Delitzsch puts it. I mean, in the literal, that's fine too. I mean, but I like designated king, or I would say anointed king, or you could just say the anointed, Um, you could say Yeshua HaMashiach. Yeah, that's we're splitting hairs here, but I'm just giving you the different look at it. Verse 4, who gave his life for our errors, and Delit says, who offered himself on account of our transgressions. Uh, Transgressions is better than errors, I would think. Sins is perhaps even better. To rescue us from this present wicked age, but transgressions to deliver us from this present evil epoch. Oh, that's all washed up. The Salkinson's much better. Present wicked age. This is the age, and the next stage is the age to come with everlasting life, and we're not there. So he defines this as a wicked age, and you all know that's true. And it was probably pretty wicked at many other times during this age, the Catholic Church persecuting people and torturing them to convert. All this stuff was going on, Wicked age. Okay. Uh, According to the purpose of our God and Father, according to the will of our God and Father. Okay. From this present wicked age, according to the will, gave us. Okay, he's telling us that it was God's idea for Yeshua to give us his life for us. Okay, verse 5. To whom be the splendor throughout the epochs of epic, the age of Abe. Okay, let's see what Dellett says. To whom be the majesty forever and ever. I like that better. To be the majesty forever and ever. He's saying the ages of ages, the epic of epics or the age of ages isn't so bad, but we don't speak that way anymore. They did back then. Okay. Uh Maybe we will in the future. I don't know. I marvel that you are so quickly turning away from him who called you by the favor of the designated king unto a different message of good tidings. So let's read this with Delish. I'm interested in what he's saying. I am astonished that you are so rapidly removing yourselves from him who called you in the favor of the anointed leader unto an altered good news. So in other words, this is 2 Corinthians 11:4. To have another Jesus, they have another gospel, and they receive another spirit. How rapidly they fall away. You see? And Paul says he marvels at that. Verse 7, which is not really another, only there are some who trouble you and wish to pervert the good tidings of the designated king. Now we'll read Delich, which is nothing else except, you see, it's saying that's washing. Delich isn't hitting it. It says, which is not really another. You got to say gospel. It's not really another gospel. So people know exactly what it's talking about. This isn't, both of these are not right. Not as well, they're not as good as they could be. That there are certain men shaking your stability and seeing to overturn the good news of the anointed leader or designated King Yeshua. Okay. See, they try to mess around with it. Okay. But even if we or a messenger from the skies, well, I would say messenger from the heavens, right? Which would be an angel. I would probably say angel from heaven. Should you know more accurately what it means, should bring you glad tidings contrary to what we brought you, let him be banned. Okay, Delit says, but should we, or even a messenger from the heavens, announce to you a glad message? No, that's, another gospel, good tidings, glad tidings. Okay. Distinct from what we announced. In other words, different from what the apostles told them. To you, let him be accursed, or the other one says banned. So you have nothing to do with him when they bring you another gospel. And there's plenty of other gospels floating around. As we have said before, so I say now again, if anyone brings you glad tidings, the gospel, contrary to what you received, let him be banned. Let him be accursed, is what you're getting from Delich. For am I now seeking the approval of men or of God? Or am I striving to please men? If I was still pleasing men, I would not be a bondservant of the designated king of Yeshua. Because if you're pleasing men, you're you're not walking with God right. When you're getting men upset with you, you're walking right with God. Not necessarily. I mean, if you're reading the true gospel and they're getting mad at you, yeah. If you're doing something wrong and they get mad at you, that doesn't mean you're walking with God, not at all. I make known to you, brothers, that the good tidings brought by me is not according to man. It's from God. For I did not receive it from man, nor was I taught it, but it came through a manifestation of Yeshua, the designated king, or Yeshua, the anointed leader, or Yeshua HaMashiach. Yeshua, the anointed would probably wrap it up pretty good, I guess. You could say the anointed king, I suppose, or Yeshua HaMashiach. I'd have to check the original text on that, but um, designated king doesn't make it clear enough for me. Anointed king would be okay, or anointed leader, anointed king. For you have heard of but if you said Yeshua HaMashiach, you said it all. You're okay. The anointed, Yeshua the anointed. So people know who he is. For you have heard of my former conduct in Judah. Now I intensely persecute what now, oh, how I intensely persecuted the assemblies, the congregations of God, and tried to destroy it. And I advanced in Judaism beyond many of my own age among my people, being far more zealous for the traditions of my ancestors. Notice he's spelling it out. If you're going to listen to him, you'll get it. He says here, advanced in Judaism. That's not advancing in the ways of the Lord. That's your Talmudic stuff. And then he goes further and says, zealous for the traditions. And Delich says it reads, being exceedingly zealous for the ordinances of my father. That's vague. That's no good. See, the zealous for the traditions of my ancestors. Fiddler on the Roof, tradition, Okay, 15. But when it pleased God who set me apart from my mother's womb and called me through his favor, Delich. But when it pleased God who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his favor, it's almost identical. It's like the first time they were almost identical since we started this chapter. To reveal his son in me, Delich, to disclose his son within me. Interesting. Very similar, but different words, but very, very similar. That I might proclaim him among the nations or among the heathens. I did not immediately confer with flesh and blood. So he didn't check, consult, it says, among the Gentiles, I did not consult at once with flesh and blood. So he's explaining he didn't check with man. He got marching orders from the Lord and he took it. He went to work. Okay, 17. Nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were envoys before apostles before me. See, envoy is a secular word. That's why I'm having it translated that way. Apostle is the church version of an envoy. So an envoy generally could mean a lot of different people, but an apostle is highly specific. All right. So anyway, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were envoys before me, but I went away into Arabia and returned again to Damascus. So he went to Arabia. There was no Saudi Arabia then, and he went to Damascus in Syria. Then, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas, and I stayed with him 15 days. So we hung out with Cephas about 2 weeks. But I saw none of the other apostles, it says envoys, apostles, except James, the brother of the master. Now, concerning the things I am writing to you, behold, before God, I do not lie. Afterward, I went into the region of Syria and Cilicia, and I was still unknown by face to the assemblies of Judea. And what does Delit say? And I remained unknown by face to the congregations of Judah, which were in the designated king, which were in the anointed leader. Okay. So he's saying the congregations didn't know who he was by looking at him. They only kept hearing, he who once persecuted us is now proclaiming the trustworthiness of the system he once tried to destroy. Let's read this in Delich. They only heard it said, he who formerly drove us out now preaches the fidelity which he once laid waste. So he's saying, well, he used to persecute the congregations. Now he's teaching in the congregations. And remember, it was a challenge. They had to accept this guy that was persecuting them. And he was raised in the Talmud. And the tradition, he didn't really understand the prophecies and the teachings of Yeshua, yet it was imputed to him supernaturally, and he had a vast degree of knowledge. Okay, in such matters, verse 24, and they praised God on my account. That's a little bit vague. Delit says, and they glorified God because of me. Now we're in Galatians chapter 2, verse 1. Then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus along also. I went up by revelation. So that means it was revealed to him supernaturally to go there. Okay. Laid before them the good tidings which I proclaim among the nations, but privately before those of reputation, but privately to those of high standing, lest by any means I might run or had run in vain. Lest by any means I should run or had run in vain. But not even Titus, who was with me, though a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. And that was because of false brothers secretly brought in, who slipped in to spy out our liberty, which we have in Yeshua, the designated king, that they might bring us into bondage. Okay, I gotta work on this. It's not shutting off. See if I got it this time. Yeah, I did. Okay, so they were understanding they were under mercy and grace, not Moses' law. And false believers, gosh, there's tons of those, aren't there? Uh, came in and got, this Titus, the Greek guy, all psyched up that he had to go get circumcised. So he's saying that these false believers might bring us into bondage, that they might reduce us to slavery, to the law, bondage, in other words, to the law, get the people back to, all the things in Moses' law, to whom we did not yield. So Paul wouldn't give ground to them at all. We did not yield submission even for an hour, so that the truth of the gospel tidings might remain with you. Delich, to whom we gave practice by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the good news might continue with you. Partially, it's good news because you're no longer in bondage to the Mosaic law. But from those who seemed to be important, deemed to be somewhat, Delit says, to be important, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God shows no partiality to man, those of reputation contributed nothing to me. So movie star doesn't mean anything in God's realm. On the contrary, when they saw On the contrary, when they saw that the good tidings, the good news, the correct gospel, the true gospel, to the uncircumcised had been entrusted to me, just as the good tidings to the circumcised had been to Peter. So Peter was working with the Jews, and I think this means Paul was working with the lost tribes because it says uncircumcised. The word for the heathen would be the nations or the goyim, not the uncircumcised. For he who worked effectively in Peter for the envoyship, apostleship to the circumcised, to the Jews, also worked effectively in me towards the nations, towards the heathen. So now he's talking about towards the nations. Could still mean the 10 tribes, though. The Goyim word. Okay. And when James, Cephas, and Yochanan, John, who seemed to be callers, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the favor that had been given to me, they gave to me, they gave favor to him. They gave to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, that we should go to the nations. The Delit says the Gentiles, it's the Goyim word, go to the nations, and they to the circumcised. So he was going to the uncircumcised, and they were going to the Jews to preach the gospel. It's pretty interesting, huh? But what am I doing? How many of you are circumcised? I don't know. I'm not asking. Too much information. Okay. They only desired that we should remember the poor, the very thing I was also eager to do. But when Cephas came to Antioch, I withstood him to his face because he stood condemned. Blameworthy is the word Delitzsch uses instead of condemned. Now let's keep reading. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the heathen, the nations. He ate together with the Goyim. But when they came, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing those of the circumcision. Okay. See, what he did wrong, what Cephas did wrong is he wouldn't eat with the heathens, with the nations, with the uncircumcised, where the Jews would be able to see him and know he did it. So he was playing with Moses' law still. And when you play with Moses' law under bondage to Moses' law, you go, right? And the rest, because you're not respecting the work Yeshua did for you on the stake, giving his life, when you understand that and really accept it in its fullness, you realize that your righteousness is with God the Father, not with other men. And God the Father recognizes the righteousness he got for you through Yeshua, what Yeshua did. You're righteous due to the works of Yeshua and your faith in Yeshua. Boom. You don't need the works of the law to become righteous. And if you got that righteousness from Yeshua and then you start chasing the works of the law, because you think, well, I really need to do this or I won't be righteous. Now you're downplaying the works of Yeshua. Not good, not good. The works of Yeshua do not require you to go beyond mercy and grace, the age of grace. They don't require you to go beyond the grace. You can hang out in the grace from Graceland, from what Yeshua did for you. I'm kidding with Graceland. Okay. And the rest of the Judeans, that means Judah, the people in Judah, also joined him in this hypocrisy. See, it's a hypocrisy um, because you're saying you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. I'm saved without the law. No, I'm saved with the works of Yeshua. Plus, I also have to do the works of the law. See, you're saved by faith, not works. And when you start adding the works in it, that's the false believers usually that lead you this way, or the Satan, the demons, or something like that. So that even Barnabas was carried away by their hypocrisy. When Peter was on the roof, it was about eating with the guy that wasn't circumcised. It's a similar thing, right? They were having a big problem with this back then. But when I saw, you see, if an Orthodox Jew came into my house right now, he wouldn't touch things. He wouldn't sit down. He wouldn't have a glass of water. He wouldn't eat anything. He wouldn't do anything because he'd be looking at me. How do I know if this guy follows kosher? You know, his idea of kosher is the Talmud, no less. Hey, okay. But when I saw that they were not walking straight according to the truth of the good tidings, the true gospel, I said to Cephas before them all, if you, being a Judean, live like the heathen nations, the Goyim, and not like the Judeans, the circumcised Jews, why do you compel the Goyim to live like Judeans? Why are you telling them to, not eat with the uncircumcised and stuff like that? Verse 15, we who are Judeans by nature, or Jews, by nature is what I think he's saying, and not sinners from among the nations, from the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not established in rectitude in deeds, not justified. Delit says not justified by the deeds of the law, rectitude by legal statutes. That's wrong. Deeds of the law. but through the fidelity of Yeshua, the designated king, even we have placed our reliance in Yeshua. We placed our reliance in Yeshua, the designated Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah, that we might be established in rectitude or justified by fidelity. Delit says, in by the fidelity of the designated king. So it's saying your righteousness is coming from Yeshua, by the fidelity of the designated king, and not by legal statutes. Delitzsch is a little clearer and says, and not by the deeds of the law. The deeds of the law, or doing the works of the law, or doing the deeds of the law. Not by legal for by legal statutes no flesh shall be established. Delitzsch says, for by the deeds of the law shall no flesh be justified. Okay, so the flesh doesn't get you justified. So why are you doing it? And it says if you break the law in one place, you broke the entire law. And since there's no temple, no priesthood operating, no altar, nothing, you're breaking Moses' law all over the place. So when you put yourself under the law, you're under the broken law. You're just like making trouble for yourself, But you're saved by grace. You don't have to worry about that. But if while we seek to be established in rectitude or justified in in Yeshua HaMashiach, we ourselves also are found sinners in the designated king. Is therefore the anointed, this is David's, the anointed leader, the minister of sin, far be it. Designated, now Saul considered designated king, they're an agent of error, absolute negation. So they're saying, no, Yeshua's not here to preach error with us. That don't even go there. It's not right. For if I build again those things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. Delit says, if I construct again the things that which I pulled down, I prove myself. It's, now I'm in verse 19. Galatians 2:19. For I through the law died to the law. Delich. For I through the law am dead to the law. I like dead to the law better. That I might live to God, that I might live to God. See, yeah, the law goes to death, living, getting righteousness by faith from what Yeshua did for you on the stake is good. It's perfect. I have been executed together with the designated king, Yeshua HaMashiach. It is no longer I who live, but the Yeshua HaMashiach lives in me, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by fidelity towards the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. Okay, Delich. Let's get it. This is a little on the hard side. Let's see how Delich does it. I am crucified with the anointed leader, with Yeshua HaMashiach. So he's saying, I too am crucified by faith. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but the Yeshua HaMashiach lives in me, says the anointed king. And the life which I now live by the flesh, I live by the fidelity of the Son of God who loved me and delivered himself up for me. He delivered himself up corporately for all of us with the corporate love for all of us. Corporate means for all of us, incorporated, all of us. All right. I do not nullify the favor of God. Delich. I do not frustrate the favor of God. For if rectitude comes through legal statutes, Delich, uh, for if righteousness comes by the law, that's much better. Righteousness does not come by the law. Nobody made it except perhaps Yeshua. Comes through legal statutes. Well, John the Baptist's father, I think, maybe his parents were without error or something, it says in the scripture, I believe. But that doesn't mean they never ever broke the law. Maybe it just means at that point in their life they didn't anymore. I don't know. But we know Yeshua was the only one. I would say that you're safe in saying that. Through legal statutes, then the designated king died for nothing. See, people don't get that when they're going back to Moses' law. Oh, with the Sabbath or with the food or with anything they want to pick up Yom Kippur, whatever they go after, right? You're doing a slur on Yeshua. It's not as sad as the Catholics saying every time a single Catholic takes the wafer and drinks the grape juice or the wine, whatever the heck the Catholics use, they're dragging Yeshua down from heaven and re-crucifying him again. Okay, that's really bad. But when you're saying, I got to do this or I'm going to lose my righteousness, you're kicking against the work that Yeshua did for you. It's more serious than you might think. That's why the false believers try to do this to get you to keep doing it. Don't eat this, don't do that, this and that. Have Mehedrin food or have Glock kosher or whatever they come. There's a million things they could come up with, Trying to observe the holidays. You can't observe the holidays without the temple, the priesthood, the offerings, sacrifice. How are you going to observe the holiday? You're breaking Moses' law. You're playing a game. I'm going to observe the holiday. How? You're going to go down to Jerusalem to the temple? Gee, where is the temple? I've been around Jerusalem a lot. I never saw it. Did you? Where is it? How come we don't have a picture? Where is it? It ain't there. How you doing it? You can't. when Elijah comes to start training the Levites, then it's going to be there. But what is he training the Levites for? To get rid of to purify them like gold and silver. What is he doing? He's burning out the Kabbalah and the Talmud and the tradition, back to Fiddler in the Roof. He's burning all that stuff out of them, not literally, but he's getting that out of them. So what's left is the Old and New Testament and Yeshua and walking in it. See, there's always a law. There's a law now. Galatians 5:19-21. For instance, there's other places. This is not the only place, but it says there's a shopping list of things that if you do it, you're not going to enter the kingdom of heaven, like adultery, fornication, drunk, murder. It's all there, along with variance. How do you do variance? Well, I'm pre-trib, I'm mid-trib, I'm post-trib, I'm a millennial. I baptize in water, I spritz for baptism. I don't do immersion. I pray in tongues. No, you can't pray in tongues. I baptize in the Holy Spirit. No, you can't baptize in the Holy, whatever, That's variance. We vary in our beliefs. And to legitimatize this variance, which Paul said you're like Apollos and Cephas, very bad. They do denominations, which is seditions or divisions, and they attribute the variance or the doctrinal statement to the denomination. And the Messianic congregations have their own version of this that's the same junk that's called Messianic umbrella organizations, and they have their own doctrinal statements. It's a denomination called by another name, Messianic umbrella organization. You get under it. What are you getting under it for? Protection from who? When you start with variance, you're going against the teachings of God. So there's a law in Galatians 5:19-21. If you do these things, you're not going to enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay? And there's other things in there, you know? So then comes, 2 Corinthians 11:4. They preach another Jesus, they have another gospel, and they receive another spirit. That's bad too. If you preach another gospel, you're in a bad way. Does it say in Galatians 5:19-21 they're preaching another gospel? They're not going to enter the kingdom of heaven? No, I don't believe it says that, but it says variance, which is probably going to cover it. And it also says there's another word after it means the cults, so yeah, it's in there. I'll read it to you. I know it's in there. I'll let's actually what did I do here? I hit the wrong button. Let me get the right button and get rid of this. Hold on. It's giving me an ad. I don't want an ad. Well, if I hit this, do I get rid of it? Yes. Okay. Hang on a second. I want to get this Galatians thing up for you. Uh, Okay, Galatians 5:19. Now the inclinations of human nature, Delich, how the works of the flesh. It's a different way of saying the same thing. I like works of the flesh better. Are obvious, which are marital, which are these? Any? Well, I can read it to you in Salkinson. Marital infidelity, that's adultery. Marital infidelity sounds good. I like that. Impurity, that's uncleanness. Licentiousness or lasciviousness, that's, as I get that, it would include like petting with young people usually, but not always. Porn, going to strip joints, stuff like that. Devotion to counterfeits. I like that. What does Delit say? Idolatry. Oh, interesting insight. Next is sorcery. Um, then Delit says witchcraft. I think witchcraft is a good way of expressing it. It should cover all the witchcraft junk they do. Enmities, which is variance. No, no, I'm sorry, hatred. And enmities is hatred. You go around hating people, hating groups. Like some of the people who go to church hate the Jews. Okay. Enmities. And it says strife, which is um you know, being at odds, fighting with each other over something. Jealousies. Now, variance is what it says emulations, hatred, strife. Then it says variance. Delich says variance. Strife and variance, I think, are kind of related. Um, because of the variance, you're fighting with each other. No, it's not pre-trib, it's mid-trib. They're all wrong, but they fight over it. Okay. Then jealousies is emulations. Outbursts of anger is wrath. Selfish ambitions, dissensions. Dissensions is divisions. It's the seditions. It's denominations. That's a division. Instead of calling it denominations, they should call it divisions. Seditious divisions. Okay. And that's a sin that'll keep you out of heaven, kids. Then it says factions, which is a heresy. So when you start with the other gospel, you're a faction. Okay. It goes on. Envyings, which is related to jealousy, I guess, kind of, right? Murders, that's obvious one. Drunkenness, rather obvious. Carousing, that's like, howling at the moon, getting drunk and partying, and I guess that sort of stuff. And things like these, and that's very clear. And things like these. And Delich says, and such like of the witch. See, such like of the witch, that gets it lost. Salkinson hits it. He says, things like these. I think Delich is trying to say that, but he's using words that I don't think communicate that well. Like those of which I forewarned you. And then Dewitt says, I tell you before, as which I tell you before. That's better than forewarned, I think. People will understand it easier. Uh, just as I have forewarned you. And then Dalet says, as I have also told you in time past, I have forewarned you. So Delich gets it better here on that phrase, that those who practice such things, uh, that they which do such things, I like do such things, shall not inherit. Shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And they both say the same thing. Do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. When you're talking about not inherit the kingdom of God, that means you ain't getting to heaven. Well, you're not getting into New Jerusalem, which I would say means the same thing, but kingdom of God doesn't sound like New Jerusalem. To me, it sounds like heaven. And is this a law? Well, yeah, because it tells you plainly, thou shalt not do. And if thou do, thou shalt receive this punishment. So under this age of grace, is there a law? Yeah, we just read it. I mean, there's things you can't do. And we got broad and wide as the road to destruction, and many find it. They're in these denominations. A house divided unto itself shall not stand. That's the scripture why these denominations are forbidden. Okay. So I could lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. All right. So let's see if we got any questions in the in the chat. I gotta turn it on to be able to look at it. Remember, I reading you these scriptures out of your Bible. They're in your Bible, my Bible, your Bible. So what are you ignoring, me or the Bible? Someone says, I took a walk yesterday on purpose. The gas prices at the gas station have not changed in Wisconsin for 5 days. 369 a gallon. You're very fortunate. You have what I was giving was average prices. California is going to be higher than other places. That's what the average is. You're on the very low side, so you're fortunate for that. I was thinking if there's a law, then why do we have the Constitution? All we need is God's simple 10 Commandments. Couldn't even tell you where the Constitution starts or ends. Yeah. Well, the Constitution is not, God's message to us. That's man. Okay. Remember, Ben Franklin and George Washington were Masons, and George had slaves. I expect Ben Franklin probably did too. So take that into account. Well, forget the slaves. Let's leave that out of it. Let's just go Masons. So they were worshiping other gods. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to get a prayer going for us. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers and their households, that we would have your peace, safety, protection, calm, rest, joy, and shalom, peace, and that we would have more of the gifts of the Spirit, specifically, or an emphasis on faith, wisdom, and discernment. And I pray we would have strength, stamina, and endurance, and I pray for your healing and recuperative power to flow through us, and for our animals and pets. I pray we'd be safe, secure, happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray for those of us that do not have housing to get housing. And those of us that can't afford food can get food if there are any. I don't know that there are any. I know there's a need for housing in some cases, okay? And I pray if people have housing and it's uncomfortable and they want to get other housing, that they find that other housing as well and pursue that. And I pray that those of us that need work find good work. Those of us that need clients and customers find those. And I pray that we all have an abundant and as much money as we need, and then some abundance extra. And I pray we all learn the scriptures better. We know the word of God better. I pray I can do better work with the translations. And I pray that um, I can make better videos and live streams. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that. If you're a believer, you should. And I will do some spiritual warfare now, which you could also agree to, even if it's a video, you can agree with it. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father Jehovah, I loose from me and my wife, any of the true believers, and everyone's household and families, any unclean spirit and any such people. The unclean spirits are immediately kicked out of these people, never to return again. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. You can agree with that if you're a believer. And um, also for me and my wife and all the true believers and their families and households, I cancel uh, any sorcery or witchcraft directed at any of us, directly or indirectly. It's cast null and void for all time, shall never return, nor shall anything close to it or like to it ever be cast on any of us again, ever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, I so submit this to you. Again, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that. So I send my Shabbat Shalom to you, because we're coming up on Shabbat in a few hours here. And to those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, I send my Shabbat Shalom. And I do take requests for the translation work in the Old or the New Testament. Those are the only books I work with, kids. So anywhere from Genesis to Revelation and everything in between, I'll take a request for. No other books, no New York City phone books, no Talmud, no Tibetan Book of the Dead, nothing. Just Genesis to Revelation. Okay. And that's what I got. And please keep praying for me to do well with the working in the private and public welfare system in Israel. And that's what I got. And I hope you got something out of it. I think these translations are an excellent way to teach Bible, because you get more clarity in the meaning. It really opens it up, you know. Well, when you read the King James, you're kind of like wondering, what the heck am I reading? What's going on here? You don't get the fullness of it, you know. And then you could get easier translations like NIV, but then you don't know what's real. All right, guys, I'm out. Thanks.